our minds are not comfortable being. We want to do everything. So when initially, if you ask me, how do you be human, I might be like, well, you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do the other thing. But nothing. There's absolutely nothing you have to do to be human. You're already it.
Welcome, everybody, back to the How to Be Human podcast. I have my lovely friend, Christi Krug, in the house with me today. Welcome, Christi Krug.
Thanks, Laura.
I want to let everybody know that Christi is an author, writing coach, and owner of Wildfire Writing. She writes poetry, fantasy, children's novels, literary fiction, memoir, autobiographical fiction, a smattering of horror, inspiration, self-help, and you might want to check in with her because next week it could be different. Christi runs writing retreats in magical places, frequent workshops, and teaches at Clark College. Her genuine intrigue for a writer's heart and mind is what drew me to her and helped unravel my own writer's prose into published pieces and a forthcoming juvenile fiction fantasy novel.
Woohoo, Laura.
Christi is every ounce of what she speaks, walking the walk, literally, every day on trails, beaches, and mountains in the Pacific Northwest, and talking the talk with all of her students, counsel, and wise friends. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Christi Krug.
Oh, gosh. Thank you.
The applause, the applause.
Wow, that's so honoring. Thank you, Laura.
No problem, no problem. I mean, you are every ounce of all of those words and words, feeling tones, sensations are your craft, you
Yeah.
know. I think I'd be curious for myself and anybody who's listening, when did your writing journey begin? Like what drew you to writing and how has it turned into what it is today?
Oh, I haven't been asked that for a long time. I really feel that for me, books when I was young were a way to try to figure out the world. And also, the stories were somewhere to go when life was scary. So, books were speaking to me. And then my response was I started writing stories back, third, fourth grade. And it just felt so it just came on its own. It just felt like such a natural thing. And so I loved writing itself, but as I got older, I developed a relationship of feeling very judgmental toward my writing and very critical and very just kind of a sort of a stuckness to where what I wanted to do and what I felt was the outcome were two different things. And so I discovered some amazing principles that completely changed that for me and basically helped me escape that criticalness. So I said, this is too good to keep to myself. And I just started using the principles in classes. And then 10 years later, I was like, I think I'd like to work with people one-on-one. So I started doing that. And it's been many years now working with writers and with myself.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, my experience as a writer is there's definitely that tone or voice of the inner critic or perhaps the perfectionist who just wants to have it come out perfectly on the page and so much harsh criticism and judgment that could happen in there. And the word that came to me kind of when you were speaking about that and the judgment was, I think I've heard you say this before, Dr. Codger and
Yeah, the dream kid. The
The
dream
dream
kid. And
kid.
Laura, you would know that because you are so much the dream kid. You rock the dream kid. Yeah, it's we really do have kind of two different energies when we write. And so I've personified them in that way, and it's really helped me. And then I use that in my class because as adults, as grown-ups, we have these responsibilities and we're always looking at the outcomes. And so Dr. Codger rises to the occasion and tells us that's not good. That's, work on that. But the fact of the matter is Dr. Codger or the editor or the critic doesn't create anything, cannot create. And if you do not spend time with, encourage, play with, and set free your inner dream kid, there's really no point to Dr. Codger at all because there's nothing to even truly critique. So it's just, he's just kind of an afterthought for when you're in the refining process. But in our culture, we are so outcome oriented. We are so, what does this look like to somebody else? That we put the cart before the horse and we put the critic before that inner dream kid, which is so important for creativity.
It's so true. It's so true. It just reminds me of my own experience of when I first met you. It was 2017, 2018, and I was like in this mode of like I had to write something and I was writing a memoir and it was serious and like I had to like make the lessons and the points. There's got to be wisdom in here. And I remember, I don't know how long it was, 6 months, 12 months of kind of working together on this thing.
Yeah.
You said to me one day, let's write something fun. And I was like, huh, what what could what could that be? And it literally it was like a spark to the dream kid of like, huh, what would be fun? And I kind of just like went into that space of like what would be fun for this kid? Like what would a kid's adventure be like? And that's just what sparked this whole adventure fantasy juvenile fiction novel that'll be coming out soon
Oh
that
my
thanks to
God.
you helped create.
You know what that makes me think of, Laura, is how original your story is. And it takes all these elements from your life. So when you write from the place of Dream Kid, you are not a carbon copy. You become this fresh, real human. How to be human is really to release that. Otherwise, again, Dr. Codger doesn't create. So he's always going around copying everyone. And there's nothing fresh in that. I love your
Yeah.
book. I'm so excited.
Thank you, thank you. I'm excited too. There's an interesting navigation that I found myself taking place, and perhaps you might have some insight into this. Is like it's almost like if we're too much into Dr. Codger that can take over, and there's just too much laser focus, and then weaving over to this dream kid who's open to exploring and trying new things. That place of creation is so beautiful and wonderful. And then there, for me anyway, there was a time when I needed to kind of like shake hands
Yeah.
together of like, okay, Dr. Codger, can like we be friends?
Yeah.
Can we like maybe work on this thing together? Because like I could go to really cool places as this dream kid, but I might need your help to like kind of reel it in and share this story with some people.
Yep.
Have you experienced that? It's almost like perhaps it's an integration of the
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. You actually use that metaphor really beautifully. Because it is two hands. There's the editing hand, there's the creating hand, and bringing them together. Always giving the dream kid the upper hand, if you will, being that your work begins and ends with your creative ideas. However, you are going to need that refinement and you need to interface with the world. So important. And so yeah, actually you said that very well. I couldn't have said it better.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that focus, turning the focus of Dr. Codger to towards what Dream Kid wants to do has
Yes.
seemed to help me, kind of make that a friendlier space, so it wasn't so much focused on perfectionism and just,
Yes.
just never getting anything done. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and then it gets to be a game because writing is such that there's always revision to do. There's always something you can change. There's always improvements you can make. So if you do that in a detached and playful way, yeah, you get to have fun.
it is,
Totally.
and there's almost like there an experience too of like discovering my voice. There was some sort of voice that came through the Dream Kid also when Dr. Codger kind of came in to help too. It was like Dr. Codger wasn't my voice, this focused thing. And Dream Kid is like, it's like there's this beautiful integration of like, okay, this is Lara. This is who her words, her experience, all of these perspectives coming straight through. It's not somebody else's mirror image copy kind of thing. Um, yeah, yeah,
Nice.
voice. I
I
love
love it.
that. Cool. Well, Christy, we are going to jump into the how to be human questions.
Yay.
Um, if we continue to talk about writing, I would be more than delighted with that.
Sure.
Wherever it goes, I'm
Okay.
happy with that too.
Nice.
So here's the first one. Christy, to you, how to be
Mhm.
human, and what do you think is the best integration of humanness?
Uh, you know, I'm thinking about this question. One thing that really struck me is that you asked it. I mean, it's such a simple and sweet thing to be able to say, how do I be a human? I mean, do we ever ask that question? So the fact that you are doing this and you're asking this again and again of different teachers and cohorts and such is really beautiful. And I think why it strikes me so much is because I'm asking how to be something that I already am. And the fact that and this is how our minds work. So we need you to bring this to our attention, which you've done brilliantly. But our minds are not comfortable being. We want to do everything. So when initially if you ask me how do you be human, I might be like, well, you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do the other thing. But nothing. There's absolutely nothing you have to do to be human. You're already it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer to that question. Um, as I heard you say it, I could even feel a sense of tension drop out of my head of, being a podcast host and being able to ask these questions. And I actually haven't heard anybody answer it like that yet of you already are. Like there's nothing you need to do
Right.
to be human. You
Yeah.
are. You are, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, even in that space of just taking a breath in it and feeling that I am a human,
Mhm.
that sense itself is so peaceful in itself.
Mhm.
And just being able to recognize it and witness it for a moment.
Mhm.
Um, I
Mhm.
can feel it from my head to my heart, shooting out my feet.
Mhm.
Um, and there's also another story over
Yeah.
here going
Yeah.
on of like,
Yeah. Right. Good.
and I want to stay here and I want to feel it because I am human.
Yeah.
And the story over here, it's not so loud. It's like, okay, I know you're there, and maybe we'll talk about the story, and maybe we won't. I probably will because I'm interviewing right now and we're talking, so we may as well.
Good.
um, and I guess that's probably what this kind of question comes to is I suppose the question is more kind of aiming at how do we human well? Like
Yeah.
yeah, how do we do it well so we don't get stuck in Dr. Codger mode all the time, or
Right.
perhaps even dream kid space of, living in this world but never bringing any of our beauty to the world.
Yeah.
How do we human well?
I really do love the question again, and answering it that way was not like to disparage, the asking of it, because I think that right there encapsulates what we're always doing, right? We're always like coming to the place of like having to let go and just be, but then we're always feeling that tension, like that can't be it. We're always like pushing ourselves out of that space and trying to almost like earn our way, almost like this state of humanness is so much um about not letting our minds dictate who we are, and there's a lot of discomfort around that. And it's interesting because working with stories, right? um we, my writing clients, myself, the stories I read, we use these stories to say, this is me, this is me, this is who I am as a human, this is who I am as a human. And we're constantly, and of course those are constantly changing, but I like to say that there are two different kinds of stories. And so story, story, is something that you create, that it's constantly changing, and it's playful. Again, it's something the dream kid loves. um, but a story, storey, I put the e in there because I think of like the stories of a building, and I think of like the artificial things that we build to try to get to this place in our lives where we can feel like somebody, right? So I have these stories, like I could tell stories about my mother, for example, who was disabled. And I could be like, well, all my childhood, I had to deal with her. So I'm like using these structures to try to have identity rather than just drop the story with the E and experience what happens if I go into this moment. I play, I bring her on the scene, I bring this 5-year-old on the scene, and I let them interact, and I let my memories and my perceptions and my senses bring something to the forefront. It's so exciting.
It's really exciting. It really is, because even as I asked that question, it's really not about getting answers.
Yeah.
It's not. This whole thing is not about what's your answer to the question.
Nice.
It's all about spending time with you and the
Mm,
people that I'm
mhm.
connecting with, and just getting to dance around these
Nice.
questions together. That's really, what it is. And hopefully I'm a great hostess with the dancing, and
You are, and I gotta say, I love it. I loved everything about it. I love thinking about the questions. I love your guests. It truly is remarkable. It's a beautiful, it's like a meditation that you've
Cool.
created.
Cool. It just came through me. So, when it comes through like that, I don't know if I can like kind of take ownership of it, but yeah, I mean, if it came through, it just but one
Nice.
of the things you said in there when we were talking about, and I asked you again, how do we human well?
Yeah.
Um, it was just such a funny space, because to me, if we're trying to human well, it's
Hmm.
to get to the space that we were already at, of being human. That
Yeah.
feeling, we were already there.
Yeah. That's
So
right. It's right. Hmm.
why leave or do anything else?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? That is truly amazing. And I think so much of the things I do to help me go to that space are really about calming down that anxious, that anxious insistence that I'm not enough and I'm not there. And so all kinds of modalities, and I love hearing new ones all the time, the things that people do. And discovering new ones.
Yeah, I do too, because even as we're talking about stories, and there was one over here, and we talk about being human again, there was just a little one over on this side, like, well, if I just be human and enjoy this feeling,
Mm,
what's gonna happen? Like, if I don't do anything,
right.
what if?
Right.
The story start to
Yeah.
go that way. It's a really interesting space to, I guess, witness perhaps my own thoughts and feelings that are kind of going on. Well, I could go this way, I could
Yeah.
go this way, but really, it feels really good right here. Yeah. So
Yay.
perhaps that's a really wonderful integration of humanness.
Yay. I like that.
So okay, so if we're this second question probably just won't go with the way that we talked about the first question, but we'll ask it anyway. Let's
Yeah.
dance.
No, I
Um,
I I do. I have got some thoughts about it. It's okay.
cool. Okay. So, how do you think we can intentionally engage all humans to be more human or live live well, I guess?
Yeah, totally. No, I really do. I mean, again, it's that paradox. Like, how can we become more of what we are and what we're meant to be? And I really this is a key, I think, for me. And again, talking about stories and talking about the power of words, it's really for me this idea that we can listen to ourselves, we can listen to our bodies, we can really listen and allow what's human, allow our experiences um to speak, rather than shutting them down, rather than going somewhere else, rather than trying to find relief from, again, from my tensions and fears and anxieties in some other activity. But listening brings you right here. And so I really feel that the more I listen to myself, and one way I listen is by writing, that I am more and more open to listen to you. And the more I listen to you, the more you get to relax and share your true human experience. And I really do believe that our best selves are in there, but we're not in the mode where they can flourish. We spend a lot of our energy, again, in these kind of fake Dr. Codger zones, or we spend our energy running after things that aren't really coming from our core because we don't really know how to listen.
So that's beautiful. So intentionally engaging all humans to be more human simply by listening within to oneself, to one's, I would take it, a little further and just say the sensations. What are you
Yeah,
thinking? What are you feeling? Feeling and sensations could be different. Emotions. Really getting in touch with what those things are and continuing to listen because at first those things are going to be perhaps bouncing off of other places and people and spaces, and the more you, I would say, coming from a fitness coaching background, the more you
yeah,
train that pattern for yourself and practice listening, the more you're going to be able to hear a clearer sound, feel a
mm,
clearer
mhm,
sense
mhm.
within without all that external noise. Kind of the way I displayed of like, I can tell there's a story over here. I didn't feel it in here. I knew it was there and I chose to share it with you.
Sure.
Um, but
Yeah.
in my past, those stories were in here. They were
Mm,
on my body,
mhm.
in different ways and forms. And so it took many years to kind of refine of like, oh, hold on, that story, that's not mine, that's out there. That's okay. If those stories are outside of me, what's really happening inside?
Yeah.
And that it's such a beautiful place.
Mhm.
And I'm with you of like if we can help more people learn how to listen to
Yeah.
themselves, then they can hear us, you and me, and it's really a different experience. It really is.
Yeah. And everything you said, Laura, like it took you years of listening to yourself. Like there are immediate responses and immediate things that happen when we relax and get quiet. And meditation, writing, movement, so many wonderful modalities available for that. But like you said, it takes you being willing to commit to spending time in those kinds of practices. And it could be so many things. The other day I went kayaking and I was like, this is so cool. It's so like just listening to the lake, and I'm just listening to the trees, and it's yet another way of listening. um but none of these things, if we don't access them, if we don't make them part of our day, our daily life, they're not going to teach us what we need to know.
It's so true. It's so true. Okay, so if we're talking about listening as a
Mhm.
human and humans that are flourishing, to you, Christy, what are the best examples of flourishing humans that are just being human? Who are these people, and what do their practices look like?
That's beautiful. um I am so excited to talk about this. um in my experience, and I have some meditation teachers, some spiritual teachers that I adore. I love the mystics. I love Meister Eckhart. I love people that have wrote things a long, long time ago, and when you read them and go, that's what they meant, that kind of thing. But my go-to are poets of today. And poets, in order to go to a place where I can hear what it is that wants to be said to me, I need to get quiet. I need to tune into my body. I need to be willing to not just repeat something that I've heard and the way that I've heard it, a cliche or something on the news, or you really, as a poet, you have to have this pure channel. And currently, I'm reading for, I think it's the third or fourth time, William Stafford's book, You Must Revise Your Life.
Mm.
Just a simple library book, because I can't find my other copy. Hazard of moving. Some of my books are, I don't know where they are. But William Stafford said, the language leads poets in many directions. It is not a deliberate thing, but more like where your attention is at a given time. If it goes one way, it doesn't go another. It's not so much a grim focusing as it is being distracted in a positive direction. A poem is something that starts to be something and it keeps right on being that thing, like a human. You are willing to be channeled in the direction that you start in. You lend yourself to the immediate experience that you are having. I know it's
Wow.
so juicy. There's so much here. And some of my favorite poets are people I know. The amazing Paul Ann Peterson. She was poet laureate from 2010 to 2014 for Oregon. Naomi Shihab Nye is an amazing poet that I love. Um, Anis Mojani is our current Oregon Poet Laureate. Oh my gosh, knock your socks off. You have to look up the YouTubes of this poet who started out as spoken word poet. Um, just beautiful people I know. And I noticed that I admire the way that they kind of pause before they react to life.
Mhm.
Kate Gray, a wonderful teacher, a writing coach, um, just an amazing human. And I could just go on and on with people that I've met who happen to be poets, who just have a way about them. I was interviewed a couple months ago by Edie Kronk. She's this wonderful lady. an older lady on the Oregon coast, and she has a show called the Florence Radio Poetry Society. And her listening had me in tears at the end of our interview. I mean, she listened so deeply that and what I'm saying about this listening thing, and she told a story that I was just like, I don't ever want to forget that story. She's a former social worker, and she'd had would work with this teenage boy who was so violent in his speech, swearing, F word, everything, every second. And people were always trying to get that kid to stop. And she spent some time with him and got together, and he was, doing his thing, and she just listened and listened, and he's like, well, why are you just letting me talk like this? And she said, you know, what your life experience has brought to you is that you have to say this word, that the anger, the frustration, the hurt, the things that have gone on. And as many times as you need to say it, I'm going to be here to hear it. I'm like, okay, you're one of my new heroes.
Wow.
That's the kind of listening that changes us. And when we become the containers for poems, for voices, for people's hurts, we become these limitless beings we are really meant to be.
Wow. Absolutely powerful. That's beautiful, Christi. If anybody is listening out there and they tried to catch all those names, don't you worry. I will put them below in the show notes and make sure you have links to their YouTubes and resources wherever you can find them, because that was a grand list. Thank you so much. What a beautiful expression of beautiful humans. Okay. Wow. Um Christi, what to you are easy reminders to be more human
Mm-hmm.
when some around us are walking and talking a little less human? And that's probably not the best way to put it because everybody's
Mm.
human,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps more programmed, conditioned.
Yeah. Wow. It's it's kind of triggering when you run across people who are not living in that, way. And I know that for me, I can get caught up in their issues. And it could be a family member, it could be, just a stranger, it could be anything. But I think, and we're talking about a daily practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my daily practice of getting quiet, of it's something between, or sometimes I choose from different things, prayer, meditation, yoga, movement, breathing, and writing, all the above, and sometimes like I said, in different concentrations, and nature.
Mm.
Spending time in nature is a huge modality for me, whether it's walking or even sitting, or my new garden. I've never had a garden before, but I get it. It's again being in this beautiful listening world with all these things to offer. So I would say that for me, I need to stay in that daily practice so that I don't get triggered by other people. And if I don't get triggered by them, it could be that I could listen. I could take in something that finally they are feeling heard, they're feeling recognized, they can relax. And maybe that can make a change in the fact that they're again not really listening connected to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
It'd be interesting because the story that you just shared about the woman who interviewed you and was a social worker,
Edie,
you know,
uh-huh.
yeah, like how did she get to that space where, you know, his words weren't a violent thing for her to hear, and she was
Right.
able to just be present and listen to him, and essentially kind of like what you're saying, not be triggered by it.
Yeah.
Like what's underneath there.
Yeah.
And it's different for all of us because, whatever those triggers are, it's different from how we're raised, how we experience the world, whatever our makeup is on the inside and the outside, how we think we're perceived. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's no right answer to this question, and of course, everybody's a human, and perhaps there's just more of those stories with the EY that we were talking about before, more layered onto the individual and the human, and perhaps some of us are better or more equipped to listen to that depth of listening, and maybe that depth of listening isn't necessarily a skill to be acquired, kind of like we were talking earlier of I have to be a better listener to be a better human.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's okay that I get triggered by certain things and I just need to I need to go to the nature and not be involved in those things or spaces or people.
Right. Well, I think these practices are there to show you what's going on in your body. What are you feeling? What are the things that are coming up? And then if they come up while there's somebody right in front of you, you can you can continue to be present. Sometimes not. Sometimes I do have to remove myself if there's something really going on that's like, okay, I need some help here. But often if because you have that practice, you're like, oh, okay, this is a moment, I can just be present right here, right now. There's frustration or there's fear, and you get to see the things that are behind their stories, when you are not reacting, when you can just be there.
Yeah, it really can bring a lot of clarity into your own life and situations, perhaps partnerships, whatever projects you're working on. And I found in my own sense, and this is probably a little bit of hypervigilance from my past lives, this life, but prior
Yeah,
years,
I
is
hear you.
just not it's not up to me to help them remove their stories either. Like that doesn't just because I can hear clearly or clearer now in my own body, I don't have to then be hyper vigilant about helping other people clear out their stories. And I think that's been a really helpful space for me to understand that, you know, uh, I don't have to save everybody. Like,
It's so huge. It really is. We have no idea for them, what really is going on. But we can always come back to ourselves because this is the person that we need to learn the most about, learn how to work with. This is the person we have with us all day long, and it's our job to love them. And if we start here, we make this our practice, we'll know when it's time to reach out, and we'll know when yeah, that's not my deal.
yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes it's a match and sometimes it's not, and it's all okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
cool. Okay, Christy, here's this next one. How do we reconcile where we are with where we want to be with grace and ease?
I like that. I don't know. I I feel like the first part might be possible, but the grace and ease is really tricky.
It might be impossible. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe it happens sometimes. I mean, I think of that's why I love the practice of being still and just like noticing. And sometimes I do that with my writing. I take a breath, I'll use this as my mindful space, and I'll just be listening, and all kinds of things come in, like this is so horrible. What's landing on the page is so crappy, and you don't know what you're talking about. And all kinds of things come in. So I think the more we can be gracious with what feels so ungracious, and sometimes even disgraceful, and not at whatever point I can accept that that's what's going on. If I can accept that I'm reacting to, the thought, whatever point that I can become what Swami Kripalu, I learned yoga through the Kripalu school. And he was well known for saying that what we're really doing in yoga is self-observation without judgment. And I love that. And I find that it's really key for almost all my practices, especially writing, that that discomfort, that unease, that lack of grace is when we get on board with the critic, with the judge, and we're like, yeah, that just really sucked. You don't know what, you are horrible, whatever it is, or your writing sucks, or you can't sit in meditation, you can't even sit still. You don't get on board with that, but you observe without judgment. And so you have this, it's witness consciousness. It's developing your inner witness. And writing can so do that. I had a school of meditation where the founder was Thomas Keating, and he used to say that when you return back to, and he uses the term centering prayer, when you return back to that centering prayer, do it ever so gently. You've got the distraction, you've got the things going on, your head is saying, I can't do this, but you return ever so gently, like a feather, as soft as a feather falling. So there is that witness consciousness. That is grace, Laura. It is grace and ease, despite all those prickly, uncomfortable judgments and critiques that want to come in. You just back away. So I love that. And I should also mention, among the people, when we talk about humans, this goes in the other section, but I first learned meditation about 23 years ago from a wonderful lady in her 80s. Her name is Clemmy Purslin. And this lady completely unruffled. And when I first walked into the room, I thought I was going to a music event and it was canceled. And she said, well, you can come and sit with us. And it was these chairs, just empty chairs in a room. And I'm like, and these were old people, especially at the time, when I was looking around, I'm like, I don't want to sit there. But something said, do it. And so I sat in this chair and I just sat and I was completely quiet because that's what they were doing. And that was the beginning of really beginning to understand this self-observation without judgment.
Wow. Developing witness consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah, there's just definitely something, there's something in there of, developing witness consciousness for where we are
Mm-hmm.
listening and, you know, where we're led to be or what inspires us to move and, express ourselves. And just I love the way that you put that of I could almost see it. The witness consciousness is just there the whole time, even through
Yeah.
anytime there's a goal that's set, there's stress and tension. It's outside of you. It's you're moving towards it. And if
Mm-hmm.
that witness consciousness bringing the grace and ease along with it,
Mm-hmm.
that really actually has been one of the best answers yet to this question of like how do we reconcile this space
Mm-hmm.
essentially with witness consciousness. There is no space.
Mm. Yeah, that is such a key piece that you just found right there. Very nice. Mm-hmm. Right. It's just a perception, really.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is interesting. Interesting. What an interesting thought to play with. I
Yeah.
love the feelings that have sprung through what we've talked about today. And before we go anywhere else, I want to make sure that we touch on these beautiful retreats that you
Mhm.
are conducting and creating and welcoming people into. Because I have been to one of these treats. It was several years ago, it was 2019 perhaps,
Mhm.
and had such a wonderful time, met some lovely folks. And I think you have some upcoming retreats happening.
The first weekend in December, we are going to write into the light. We're going to be at the Hasita Head Lighthouse and again take these modalities of really listening to ourselves, to each other, to our bodies, to our words. We bring in prompts of poetry and, of course, the lighthouse and the ocean crashing below, and the sea lions sometimes barking and the trees blowing in the wind. It's just a such an awe-striking sight on that cliff. I am so excited about this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Well, put that in your calendars, y'all. I'm going to sign up for it. So hopefully see everybody there. I
Yay.
can't wait. Thank you so much for coming to this dance with me, Christy, and
Oh.
playing in this area and just sharing so many experiences from your life. I understand that these are not easy questions. And
Mm.
I am so grateful for the people who are willing to dance in this arena with me
Mhm. Mhm.
and 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 listen from a space that helps me listen to myself too. Like,
Mm.
it's beautiful. And you, my friend, have done that.
Oh my gosh, you are amazing, Laura. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Who knows? We'll do it with fingers crossed, some witness consciousness. A
Oh, I
little
love
bit more
that.
grace in the tension in between. But
Oh.
all right, that's it for now, y'all. Bye bye.